Today's guest is more than a famous media personality. From shining as a radio journalist and TV broadcaster to reinventing her life as an entertainer, she still finds the time to make us laugh.
My name is Chantal Desjardins. I'm a TV and radio host and a comedian, and I am very passionate about entertaining people.
Chantal, thank you so much for being on the couch today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for wearing the same color as I did.
Yeah, seriously. See, great minds think alike.
That must be it.
That must be it. So tell me, what's going on? It's been on the news lately that you're no longer with Sportsnet.
That's right. Yeah, they made a bunch of layoffs in the summer, and I thought maybe I would fly under the radar, but then I got the call, and yeah, it happens. I mean, in the media, like I always say, like it's like a wave, right? Like you're treated super well, and you get to do these amazing things and have these amazing experiences and meet amazing people. Right. But the wave is always going to end at some point, and you have to be able to find a new wave.
Right. So and sometimes it's about how you come back from it.
That's the thing, right? Like if you're in a job forever, you kind of can get a little complacent. In the media and jobs like this, you always have to give out your best.
Right.
Because there's always someone else that can either take your job or, you know, just the way that media evolves, jobs aren't meant to last forever. So you always have to be thinking of what your next step is. And so it's not super stable, but as long as you're okay with knowing that, you know, there's other jobs out there and they're so much fun and they're such great experiences. I mean, if you want stability, be an accountant. If you're okay with the risk, then go into the media.
I don't think people realize to what extent it is a risky business. You know, I think people think, you know, it's just for actors and actresses that you never know when your next deal comes. But if you're a reporter or a broadcaster, radio, TV, it's pretty stable. But it really isn't.
Well, it hasn't been for me. I don't know if it's something, it's just me or what. But no, I just find that media in general is always evolving, right? Like the way that we see TV and we hear radio, people aren't just sitting in front of their TV anymore. They're on their iPad, they're on their iPhone. Streaming. You know, they're streaming stuff. So traditional media is always changing. And so, you know, budgets for traditional media tend to be, you know, they're cutting back and cutting back. And you have to find different ways to sort of still stay in the media and stay relevant and, you know, have fun projects, you know, like this one, for instance, you know. I think it's always about thinking about the next sort of fun...
The next move.
The next move. You know, it's like a big game of chess. Where it involves your next mortgage payment.
Well, I mean, in your case, at least you were involved with a lot of other things. I mean, you do a lot of voiceovers, commercials, and you're a comedian, which is an interesting side gig, by the way.
I fell into it, actually. A friend of mine, Joey Elias, is a comedian in town, and I was doing the morning show on Shome, because I've done a lot of different jobs in Montreal. I've done Shome, the morning show, Virgin, Drive Home, CJD, CTV, Sportsnet, like basically everything in Montreal, I've done it. And so I was on the morning show and I was telling a funny story that happened to me. I was on a date or something and it was a disaster and I was telling the story on air and Joey comes in and he's like, hey, that was really funny. We should get you on stage. I was like, oh, I don't think so. Like, that is not my gig. And he kind of like made me come to this comedy class. He made me. He told me, like, he basically bullied me into it. And he was teaching this comedy class.
That's the best way to start a career.
You're going to do this and you know what's good for you. And so I go and I check out this comedy class that he was teaching. And first of all, I was like, nobody can teach you to be funny. You're funny or you're not.
I didn't know there was a class for that.
It's really neat. So there were only about 20 of us and we showed up on stage and you kind of told a joke. But it just got you comfortable on stage in front of 20 people. But everybody else is just as nervous and has never done it before. And so after 6 weeks of these classes,
I can barely tell a knock-knock joke.
Then take his class. It helps so much, and it was so good. It's good for public speaking, and I loved it. And at the end of the 6 weeks, we had a friends and family night, and it was the most nervous I've ever been in my life. And like I've done TV and radio and all live in front of thousands and thousands of people. This is just 200 people, but I was backstage and I was telling jokes to like a broomstick in the corner, and I was like, oh God, I'm gonna barf. And then I get out there and it was so much fun. And it was just it was the biggest rush I think I've ever had. And 3 people came up to me after and hired me to tell the same story that I told at their corporate event. And I was like, you can make money in this? I love it. So yeah, so I started to do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it since.
Yeah, I kind of do it every time I get fired from a job. Laid off, I'm just kidding, it's laid off. But I find my comedy career really takes off when I don't have a job to stop me from doing comedy. So,
now you're back on then.
So now I'm back on because I got laid off from Sportsnet. Like, the hockey gig was amazing, but it's all encompassing. Like, it takes up your whole time. Like, I was living in Toronto 3 to 5 days a week during the hockey season. And you just, all you think is, you eat, breathe, and sleep hockey. So, like, there was no funny happening ever, right? Like, you don't even have time to write anything down. But then I got laid off, and all of a sudden the phone starts ringing, and they're like, hey, can you do my gig in the West Island or, you know, Verdun? And I'm like, yeah, I can.
I'm there.
I mean, and it's actually a bit therapeutic too, right? Because I just did a gig on Saturday, and, like, I talked about being laid off and how it's the 3rd time I got laid off in 10 years, and at some point I'm going to start thinking it's me, you know? And it's just, it's kind of fun to, like, to get it out. You're not just sitting at home and, like...
Is that a bit of a thing, though? Comedians will use a bit of, you know, frustrating things in their lives and kind of make a joke out of it.
For sure, yeah. It's way cheaper than therapy, which is good because I don't have money to buy therapy right now.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, it's fun. It's kind of like, it's a good way to talk things out. Like, I would make fun of situations to my friends.
Right.
You know, a couple years ago, and they would say, oh my God, you have to tell these stories on stage. And so now I do. Or, like, you know, I was married. I don't know if you knew I was married.
No.
I was married.
When? How?
I was married. That's why I'm in Montreal. It's because I got married to a guy. And then he came here, so I came here. I'm from Winnipeg, and I loved Winnipeg.
Yes.
Have you been to Winnipeg?
No.
Okay. Well, there's not a whole lot. It's very cold in Winnipeg. I don't know why I loved it. I think I was just frozen in my brain. But then I came here, and I fell in love with Montreal.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I fell out of love with my husband. So we got a divorce, which happens. So I started to date, and I would have these funny Montreal experiences of dating. So I would start to tell these stories on stage. So basically, don't ever date me because it might end up on a comedy stage. It's basically the theme.
How come you didn't go back to Winnipeg?
Well,
or did you realize it was too cold?
You would realize
because it's pretty cold here too.
Like, Winnipeg is beautiful for the 14 days of summer. And besides that, you're going to get frostbite, like, all the time.
Really?
Yeah. No, it's nice. It's home. I go back a couple times a year. But Montreal now is home to me. I don't know what it is about the city
it's a charming city.
It's great, eh? Like, I live...
Especially if you come during the summer for the first time.
Oh, I love it. The comedy festival, the jazz fest, just, like, you know, all the streets closed down, so parking's a nightmare, but it's so fun to walk around. I love it. There's something, I would love to stay here forever. So if I can make it work by coming up with a bunch of different ideas, I will.
Which I'm sure you will.
Let's hope so.
Well, I mean, you're taking your comedy act on the road, so you'll be out of Montreal for a little bit.
So when you say on the road, you mean Cornwall? Because I'm going to Cornwall.
Hey, it's on the road. It is on the map.
I wasn't going to do Cornwall. Like, comedy was just going to be a side gig. But it just happens that, like, things are kind of evolving now, and so I got a call from a guy in Cornwall for his comedy club, and I sent it to my girlfriends, and I was like, oh my God, my career is taking off. And they're like, how fun is this going to be? We're going to do a road trip. So now there's 6 of us packing into a hotel room in Cornwall.
So funny. They can use a little humor there.
Right. I don't know. I've never been.
I've actually been briefly.
Okay.
In passing.
Well, maybe you'll come to my comedy gig.
I should, definitely. Yeah. Well, you mentioned Verdun. Were you in Verdun at some point?
I was, yeah. Okay. I just did a show on Saturday.
Okay, cool. Where are my invitations?
I know. I promise I will invite you. You know what part of it is? I'm always a little nervous that I'm not going to be funny. So I hate to promote it. And then I get to a show and I'm funny and I'm like, where the heck was everybody? That was hilarious.
You're like, did you catch that?
Right. I actually have a little set of groupies. Like 3 of my girlfriends come to every show I've ever done.
That's a very good idea.
So it's so fun. So it doesn't matter. We did one in, like, a curling club in Otterburn Park. I don't even know where that is. It's in the woods. So we pulled up and there's, like, girlfriends getting out of their car and they're like, this is great. So that's kind of fun because then you have, like, guaranteed laughers.
Well, that was going to be my question. Like, I feel like it is a tough gig.
Yeah.
And I would be mortified if no one laughed. I would just want to disappear.
Well, sometimes if they, like you do, and it's an immediate body, like, you start sweating, you know? Like, if you make a joke and you're like, this is gonna kill him, and then nobody laughs, you're like, ah, and you just, like, body sweat, right? So you have to make sure that the outfit that you're wearing does not, like, you know, allow you to just start sweating through your clothes.
I've made that mistake before, wearing something that every drop of sweat
Totally,
showed.
and it's happened. It still happens. Like, you know, you can have, and sometimes it depends on your audience, because if you're up in Laval and you're dealing with a certain demographic, or you're down in Verdun, you're dealing with a certain like different people find different things funny, and people that are in different stages of their lives. If I'm telling, you know, funny dating stories,
right,
but people have been in relationships for 50 years, they might not find these stories that other people find hilarious funny at all, you know? So the exact same story that can kill one night, the very next night can get like crickets.
Oh my goodness.
But then you can
So
kind of
never
make it funny. You never know. But you can say like, you know, if you make a joke and you're like, you hear nothing, and you're like, come on, guys, that was hilarious. And then you can kind of make them laugh by...
To recover.
sometimes you just crawl off the stage and cry. Either way.
Has that ever happened?
That you cry after?
No. I mean, where it just didn't land. The joke did not land.
Oh, yeah. Really? A couple times, you know. And then you look over at the comedians and they're like, oh, I can't help you here. But it's fun. It's just such a fun, a different experience. Because when you do get the laughs, and sometimes they laugh at things they're not supposed to laugh about. Like, you're just setting up the joke.
Okay.
And they're like, oh. And I'm like, what is wrong with you people? Like, that's not even funny. And then I say the punchline and they already laugh. So they're like, you know, but it's interesting. It's interesting to read people.
Right.
Yeah.
So now you have all this new material.
I do. I definitely do. Yeah. And I tried it out on the weekend for the first time, and it was pretty fun.
Okay, good.
Like, I almost don't want to get a new job because now I have all this material about getting fired or getting laid off. So, like, if I get a job, can I still pretend to be laid off? No. So I might have to ride the unemployed wave for a while just so that I can really, you know.
For a little while, at least a year.
Because I find that comedy really comes usually from, like you were saying, kind of a place of like hurt or darkness. I know a lot of dark comedians. Like, I only know one guy who's kind of a fun, upbeat guy, and you're like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you an accountant then if you're like so happy?
Because yes, I mean that's kind of a thing where comedians are supposed to be actually really dark people.
Yeah, isn't that
like
such a contradiction,
the clown
right?
that cries on the inside.
Yeah, that is kind of a thing. Right now, I'm crying. I'm totally crying.
Is that what's going on? Well, you're dealing with it very well.
Thank you. No, I'm not. I'm actually I'm a very happy person, and I just like to entertain other people. So I think there's two trains. There's like the dark ones that like, you know, just sit in the dark in their like basement condo and cry, and then there's the ones that, you know, like to have a bunch of beers with their friends and just be the entertainer. And I'm more that. Like, I'm a storyteller.
Yes, you're definitely an entertainer. And I remember when I met you, because I met you at the same time as a bunch of women, but you definitely left an impression after.
Is that a good thing?
She's funny. I mean, what more can you do than make people laugh? Like, it brings people together, and it's just such a wonderful way to entertain people.
And for me, it's just that, like, that gives me joy. Like, I like other people are laughing, so they're having a good time, and I'm having a good time if I can make you laugh. Like, I was an only child, and I always had to. That's totally it. I was an only child, and I grew up with like a single mom, and I was always trying to like, you know, make friends, because otherwise I just sit in my like condo with my mom and like twiddle my thumbs or whatever. So I'm like, you know, we'd go out and I'd try to entertain everybody.
We're social.
Yeah, I was very social, because I almost feel like you had to be, like, as an only child, there's not brothers or sisters to play with. And I don't know if that's like everybody's sort of reasoning for it, but
I think so.
For me, yeah, like when I went to school, it's not like I had brothers and sisters to play with. I had to like go out and make friends, or else I'd come home and I'd sit by myself.
Right. Well, I agree. I mean, I have two brothers, but because I was the only girl, they always played together, and I was kind of like
off to yourself.
Exactly. So I think because of that, I always like went out and tried to make new friends and create strong friendship with other women as well. Because, you know, growing up, I always wanted a sister.
For sure.
So I feel like in a way, these things kind of carry you throughout your life.
Now, did you grow up? I always wondered about brothers and sisters. Like, I used to like want them so badly.
Right.
Growing up with two brothers, did you ever wish you had no brothers? Like, did you ever wish you were an only child?
I'm sure the thought has crossed my mind a few times. But now, as an adult, I feel like, you know, I'm very grateful for my brothers. And, you know, I don't have a lot of guy friends, so I get that male perspective from them. So why not?
And you're so feminine. Did you grow up, like, getting beaten up by your brothers? Like, did they give you noogies or whatever?
We did play fight quite a bit. that did happen. I've had more tomboyish parts of my life.
Right. Not anymore, then.
Not anymore. Well, on the weekends sometimes. Sweatpants and sneakers, why not?
Yes, I love that.
After, well, the past couple of months, the way that you've bounced back from being laid off we don't want to say fired, right?
We don't.
Laid
It's
off.
funnier to say fired. Like in my stand-up, I say fired, but it's laid off.
Laid off, right? So you've bounced back by doing a lot of things. I mean, you just had a commercial recently, and you've been traveling. a
Yeah.
bit too.
So some people, when they get laid off, like, because you get laid off and you get a package, some people jump right into trying to find a new job. I
Right.
jumped into let's travel and spend all my money. So I went back to Winnipeg for a little bit. I took my mom to Nashville. She's
Okay.
always wanted to see Vince Gill. She's a big country fan. Yeah. So that was amazing. Do you know who Vince Gill is? He's like this old country singer that nobody
really?
knows about, but my mom loves him. I loved him too, and so.
So you know about him.
Oh
There you
yeah,
go.
I loved him. And so I'd already promised that I would take her to Vince Gill. I'm not going to say, Mom, can't afford it anymore. So I was like, let's spend my money. So we went to Vince Gill, and then went to Europe for a month.
Okay, wow.
So I ran a half
amazing.
marathon in Croatia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that something you always wanted to do, or was it a random thing?
I run half marathons. Like I do some work with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Okay.
So I sort of ran it for them. And I've only done really big races, like 10,000, 20,000 people.
Oh my goodness.
And this one was 250 people.
Okay.
So, and everybody looked like a runner. Like there were no fatties, there were no old people. Like these were like athletes, right? And I'm more of a jogger. Like
Okay.
I do it to work off the wine. I'm not doing it to like.
Do you jog on a regular basis?
Yeah, but like I'm not winning any races. Like I'm
Okay.
definitely like I'm a jogger. Like there's a silent
Power
J in
walk?
there. Yeah, I'm a power walker. And so I get there and we start running. And first of all, it's uphill.
Oh,
For like
gosh.
14K of the 21K. And like
Okay.
my little legs,
That
like they
sounds
may
awful.
look long, but like they don't do hills. I'm from Winnipeg, it's flat,
Okay.
right? So I start running up the hills and like I'm making the running motion, but my legs are not moving very
No.
fast. This old man starts like walking faster than I'm running. And I was like, this is very discouraging.
Oh, no.
And I came in 19th last.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you finished it.
I finished.
You finished it. That's what matters.
Yeah, so I'm not like ready for the Olympics anytime soon, but it was amazing. So I traveled and I drank and ate and
That sounds amazing.
hung out. Yeah, and then I just got back. So I'm.
And how often do you do fundraisers for the Leukemia Foundation?
I do a poker game once a year. I don't know if you play poker.
No, I
You
want to
should.
learn.
Okay, good. You
Definitely.
can come to the next one. Yeah, so I do that. I do a couple events with them throughout the year, which
Okay.
I'll let you know about.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Is there a particular reason why that particular company or organization, I
Yeah.
should say?
Well, when I was on the radio, when I was doing either Showm or Virgin, they kind of approached me and said, I was going to read some promos for them. And I usually like to find out about the organizations that I'm talking about on the air.
Right.
So I decided to go check out on a Saturday morning this running group that they had.
Okay.
And I'd been out drinking the night before till like 2 a.m. and I had to get up at like 6:30 to go to this thing. I was like, well, this is a disaster. Like, why am I even doing this? I show up with my coffee and my hangover and I'm just kind of like, I'm meeting these people and I'm kind of trying to sit in the back while they're talking because they're just, saying why they were there. And they always get one sort of
Right.
family to get up and share, their experience
Right.
of why they're a part of this organization. And I remember this lady gets up and her little girl had been sick.
Okay.
And she said she totally lost all feeling of control. And she said so that by, starting to run and to fundraise for this organization, it kind of helped her regain a little sense of control. And I remember
Okay.
I'm sitting in the back, hungover as anything, and I am bawling in the bleachers. And I was like, I don't know if it's the vodka from last night or the fact that I'm so touched, but it just hit me.
Oh my
and so I
gosh,
decided,
yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
And so that was like 7 years ago.
Wow.
So I've done Vegas, Vancouver, San Diego, Alaska, and now Croatia.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, they do a lot of amazing work and a lot of fundraisers and events. So it is an amazing organization. I could just imagine hearing that
story, right?
I would have no excuse. I would just be crying.
And I just find it so important. Like, we're so lucky in life, like media or not, that it's almost like a karma thing. You have to give back. So it doesn't
Right.
matter what organization. If you find one that touches you somehow, give back, whether it's money, whether it's, fundraisers, whether it's
Right.
just, awareness. If
Right.
you can do something for the community, it kind of like pays dividends down the road.
Definitely.
So I find
I
that's
agree. I feel like, for anyone, but especially people who are so public, I feel like it's kind of like your duty
Yeah.
to spread the word and try
sure.
to bring awareness to causes like
Yeah,
that.
and we have the social media power because,
Right.
I've got followers from Showm, Virgin, CJD, Sportsnet, CTV. They've just
Right.
accumulated. So it's like you have all these people that want to hear what you have to say. Just make sure what you're saying has a good message, Make
Right.
sure what you're saying has a, is worthwhile.
Right. Oh, I agree. It's one of the episodes that I've had here that touched me the most was with this woman who is the advocate for handicapped people, and she was telling me about it, and I couldn't believe with how unaware I was with their dilemma in terms of the structure of the city.
Right.
Just finding parking.
Yeah, I would have no idea.
The metro system, and the lack of funding as well to help these people, and the jobs that they're not getting,
For sure.
things like that. And it is the biggest minority. So it was.
Yeah,
it was
and it's just like raising awareness for stuff like that. Like I would have no idea what they go through every day.
Right, exactly. So I think it's amazing that people like you put some light on these topics.
Yeah, well, I've got the time now with no job to slow me down.
That's it. So you could do even more fundraisers.
Yes,
right now.
I could be a professional fundraiser.
Yes. Are you ready to run another 5K?
No, I'm tired. My legs hurt, and I'm good for another year at least.
Well, I mean, what advice would you give for someone who is maybe going through the same thing, who just got laid off? Because, I mean, you're handling it so beautifully.
Well, it's just kind of, I find life has a way of working out. If you sit around and you play the victim card and you think, like, why is everything happening to me? You kind of attract negative energy. You're going to attract negative people. If you kind of, take the mindset, hey, it was a great ride. It was such a fun wave. I met some crazy people. Like, it was, I got to wear some pretty dresses that I got to keep.
Yes. So jealous.
Then you kind of you take it as an experience, and life's just a journey with a bunch of little chapters. And that was one chapter where I got to travel to Toronto, and I lived at the Ritz, and it's just so many fun things.
Right.
But you just take what you learn from that, and then you apply it to something different, and maybe it'll turn out to be something even better than what you had, and even if it's not. Because for me at this point, if I'm going to take on another show that was as big as that one, like I did the regional Canadians games, but a bunch of them were national. So if I'm going to host a national show, I'd have to move from Montreal. So I'd either have to move to Toronto, or I have to move to New York, I'd have to move to LA, and all those sound very exciting. But at the same time, I love Montreal so much that I would love to stay here, So you just kind of take what you learned, decide what you want out of life and what stage. Life's about timing, right?
Right,
and
definitely.
It's just kind of go out and get it. Go out and find something else. Don't wait for the next opportunity to find you. Just find something. Yeah. There's always another job.
Right.
Is the thing.
And you also learn about what you don't want.
Yeah,
anymore,
for sure. If you're in a job for too long, you can lose focus of all the fun things and the opportunities that are out there. Whereas at a time like this, all these opportunities present themselves. So now, like you mentioned, I'm doing commercials, I'm doing voiceovers, and the voiceover work just kind of falls to the side when I'm, working full time because I'm busy. Whereas now it's I love doing voiceovers. I just did a few for Square.com, and they're national TV commercials, and I watched them back, and I'm like, hey, I do look like a daycare worker that needs a square, and it's just kind of, it's fun things that you wouldn't normally get to do because you're so focused on the task at hand. So just use the time that you're laid off to kind of think about what you really like, what you don't like, and go out there and get something else.
And it's kind of when something like this happens, I feel like it's life redirecting you and telling you, okay, it's time to try something else. It's a new chapter. Yeah. Maybe it's an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Yeah. It could be many things.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that have unfortunately moved from Montreal when something like this happens, but then it usually turns out to be something great. Like a friend of mine, Andrew Searles, he's a comedian, and he finds he's hit his ceiling here in Montreal, so he just moved to LA. And it's scary. But at the same time, if everything was kind of great in Montreal, he never would have ventured into this new market and this new adventure in his life. And I'm so excited for him to see what he can make out of it. And it's because he didn't, he didn't find what he was looking for here. And so sometimes it takes a kick in the butt.
He didn't try Cornwall?
Obviously, he did not try Cornwall, or all of his comedic aspirations would have been met. But maybe I'll invite him to come back for the gig.
Why not?
Yeah.
And actually, that reminds me, because in the comedy industry, there aren't a lot of women.
There are. I always have this debate over because people say, oh, that was a funny female comedian as opposed to a funny comedian. But there are very few, there are way more guys. Like when I'm on a show with men, or a normal show, it's usually, say, 4 guys and me.
That's it.
Yeah, there might be one other girl, but it's very rare. And I just find it's, there are more and more women starting to get into it, but it's a tough industry, right? Like you have to be used to, you know, be around the guys, to take the jokes. And girls, I find, you know, if nobody laughs at you on stage, like it can be traumatizing, you know? Like there's a lot of times where I go home and I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then you have to be able to bounce back. So it's that little bounce back. And I don't know if it's that guys are better at like, I don't care, they didn't like me, you know? And whereas girls, maybe we take it more, you know, to heart, or what? Or just the fact that guys typically, I don't know. Like, there's all these things that could, you know, I've read so many things about why women typically don't go into comedy. And, like, is it because when we're little, we're, you know, not taught to be the life of the party, whereas the boys are, you know, being rambunctious in school, whereas we're being, you know, studies, and who knows? But it's just, I find typically the people I hang around with, the guys are usually funnier than the girls. However, that's changing. And now I'm trying to only hang around with funny women.
Good. Good. Maybe you should start a crew of female comedians.
Well, there's actually something in Montreal where they have like just women comedian shows. And I think that's so great, because then it kind of encourages other women to, you know, first of all, come to the show, see that, like, you know, you can have a whole production of just hilarious ladies, and, you know, and it can be successful.
Who knows? Maybe I'll try it one of these days.
Do it. You know what? Take his course. It'll change your life. I'm not even kidding. And then you do the friends and family night, and you'll be talking into a broomstick in the back.
Oh my God. Okay, maybe I'll start doing a joke just with you and see if you laugh.
Do you want to do it now?
Well, on that note, but thank you so much. Thank you for coming today. I think I do find you hilarious. So
thank you.
I'm sure they will in Cornwall as well. And, you know, I don't even need to wish you good luck in terms of bouncing back. It looks like you're doing it already, so it's amazing. And hopefully people will learn a bit to go with the wave.
Yeah, that's the thing. Life is really good, and as long as you remember that, you don't get kind of like clouded by this sort of the negative stuff, then you just take it for what it is and have fun.
Well, thank you so much, Chantal. And thank you to you guys for joining us on another episode of Couch Talk. See you next time.
Wish to see you, wish to see you, may all the colors. Wish to see you, wish to see you, may all the colors.